session here, just bringing my guest on and getting everything live on the website. Shortly here, we should have James, our guest today, on the show, James Kwantes. Okay, I'm getting one step closer.
Just bringing my guest on.
One step closer here. I need to get this live on my website now. If you're coming into this show later on for the recorded version, just look at the top of the screen and or top of the page, and you'll see the time that the actual show begins. I apologize, but what I have to do in order to make everything work is I start the recording before the actual show starts, and then we introduce the show in about a minute or so. So I've just got all of that set up now. I believe I'm live on my website. I'm just going to make sure of that right at the moment. Make sure we're live on the website. And yes, we are. Perfect. So we're live on the website. I'm still awaiting our guest, James. James should be here any moment. We went through a practice of this process earlier today, and he should have this figured out any moment now. If he doesn't arrive in the next second or two, I'm going to give him a phone call just to make sure he got the email. Oh, there he is. Actually, I don't need to give him a phone call. James, I can see you. I can't hear you. I think you might have your mic off.
Okay, how's that?
That is perfect.
Good stuff.
Okay.
Are we live?
We are live. We're in the pre-show taping. Later on, when this becomes a recorded version and someone comes back, they just need to look at the top of the page there, and I put where the actual show starts. And
okay.
We've already kind of had our pre-chat, so I'm just going to get started right now, James.
Sounds good.
All right, so give me a second here. Hello, everybody. It's Allan Labucan here from the Allan Reports. I've got a great guest on today, James Kwantes. You may have heard his name before if you've read the Vancouver Province over the last decade or so. You would have seen James's name, but James recently switched from that side of the street, if you will, to the digital side when he joined CEO and took over as the editor of Resource Opportunities. Thank you very much for joining us today, James.
Great to be here, Allan.
Excellent. Well, before we get started, James, you've seen my past shows and you know my routine. Before we get started on the main part of the show, we talk about my sponsors. My sponsors make my work possible, so I like to give them a plug early in the show. One of those is Premier Gold Mines. You've probably seen me talk about it on the chat site before. James is a gold company, focused company with projects from exploration through to production. Are you following PG on the Toronto Exchange, James?
A little bit. I think they've seen a nice bump, just like most of the other gold plays lately.
Yeah, we have seen a nice recovery in the gold plays. I picked several of them, and yeah, they have sort of broken out from that bottom with the price of gold and are performing very well. I think that Premier has the potential of putting surprising news out there. They've got a lot of really good projects, as I said, in Red Lake, Nevada. They've got one that's moving towards production in Ontario as well with, I always forget their partner's name. I want to say Centerra, but I think I always mess it up. But that's sort of the gist of them, James. And then the other one you've heard me talk about on the chat site is Wolfden, high grade nickel and copper in Manitoba.
Right.
Have you been following that one, James?
I haven't been following it. I've
You
seen it
haven't
move
done
up though in the last few days.
Yeah, it has been improving, and you haven't done any homework on it yet, James.
I haven't. No.
It's not like I haven't pounded the drum on that story and their exploration and their discovery.
I'm sorry, Allan. I'm sorry.
All right, all right. I'll
You
forgive
can't
you.
track them all.
You can't keep track of them all, and you can't dance with all the girls, right? So, James, the first thing, let's talk about your big move. You moved from being a mainstream sort of media guy, and you joined Tommy Humphreys at CEO.ca, and also took over a well-known publication, Resource Opportunities, formerly run by Lawrence Ralston. What made you make a crazy move like that, James? Oh, we may have some
Business for
technical.
quite a while. Yeah, I delivered the first newspaper that I later worked at as a reporter, and then so I've been at it for 20 years. The last 10 at the Vancouver Sun. And you know, one of the highlights at the Sun, I was a business reporter there for about 2 years, but doing part-time mining reporting. So I interviewed, quite a few of the mining CEOs in Vancouver, Ian Telfer and Ira Thomas, and I've been interested in investing for quite a while. So that was a real highlight, hearing there's so many great stories in the industry, so that was a real highlight. But I've got a few years left in my career, and I just I've got a passion for investing, for mining and writing and storytelling, and I just felt like it was time to make a change. Part of it is a lifestyle issue as well. I live out in Surrey, and I was commuting to downtown Vancouver. And so this lets me see my family a bit more as well, including my 2 kids. So
that's always good for a journalist, to have sort of a good frame of mind, good family life, and a good home base to work out of. I've often wondered, James, about being a reporter in mainstream media and also being an investor, because you also had your own website as well while you were. Do I have that all right?
yeah, that's right.
Was there any restrictions on
Through
your?
investing, we sort of invested. We were interested in the similar kinds of stories, right? Like junior mining companies with strong management and good projects and so on. And so Tommy, while I was at the Vancouver Sun, he helped me set up know why I'm World of Mining. That's kind of a bit of the background there. And so you're right. Like while I was at the Sun, so the 10 years at the Sun, I was mostly an editor, as a copy editor, and then I ran the news desk. So I was in charge of the editors back when they had a larger editing staff. Lots of cutbacks and belt tightening in that industry. So while I was doing the editing at the Vancouver Sun, I also ran my investment blog on the side, which was worldofmining.com. And I got into investing probably, I don't know, 25 years ago now. Sort of had a passion for it ever since. So
You said to me before that one of your first investments in the mining space was a diamond company called Ashton. I remember the Ashton story. Actually, I was reporting on the whole story. I used to have my publication was called the Allan Reports on Canadian diamond exploration, and then I had one for base metals and precious metals. And so back then it was a big story in my thing with Stornoway trying to take them over. How did you fare in that whole situation, James?
well, you know what, I remember I remember it well. I wasn't too pleased at the, I like. And Stornoway was obviously looking for a project at the time, lots of shares out, and it got fairly nasty, as I recall. But Stornoway prevailed, and I wish I'd taken the cash, but I took the Stornoway shares, right? So took a few lumps there, but man, they got a great project. I mean, they're fully financed to build that mine in Quebec, and the stocks had a nice run too. And so I've lost money in the past on Stornoway, but I recently made a bit of money on their warrants.
So and I kind of listened to you talk that through and on the chat. And I
Yeah,
think that was your first foray into trading a warrant,
it was.
tradable warrant. And what did you learn by that, James?
Well, I mean, I hadn't, I'd seen warrants traded, hadn't really thought about them much. I got the idea actually from Paul Brockington, who I interviewed and wrote a piece on for CEO.ca. He's quite an active investor and familiar with all the diamond stories. And so the warrants were for July, to buy stock in July at 90 cents. And I bought them, I guess, a few months back. And the stock has had a really nice run. I mean, I wasn't expecting that.
How much did that warrant cost you for that? Right.
And made a bit of money. Yeah. Sorry?
How much did that warrant cost you when you bought it? And
my average price was between 3.5 and 4 cents. So just under 4 cents. And I sold the warrants at 7.5.
Because it's now trading above
90, yeah, above the strike price.
And that is open till when, that warrant? Till July?
July, I think.
Oh, okay. Good.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Sometimes you can find those little nuggets out there, and
so that was kind of fun, for all of us in the junior mining. We've all lost some money, we've all taken our lumps, so it's nice to get those wins,
to find one of those little nuggets out there, especially in the diamond space. So we've again, I wanted to talk a bit about your website, James. You have it's $299. That's Canadian, right, for a year?
Yeah.
And it's resourceopportunities.com is the website, formerly run by Lawrence Ralston, who's well known in the space. So you took over for Lawrence. And if some of my readers or my viewers are interested, they can get a hold of you on that website for a sample of your one of your reports. Since you
or you can always, they can message me on the chat too. I'm in the chat most days, so that might be the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Okay, and so how was that taken over from a sort of a really well-known guy in the business and coming over from the being an ink-stained wretch to now running a digital newsletter?
Yeah. Oh, it's good. It's been fun, Lawrence Ralston, obviously a geologist, which I'm not, and I don't pretend to be. So it's more finding sort of the value in the space and identifying the stories, that make sense, that will compel other people to get interested in the space as well. So I've sort of focused on that angle, including some special situations that are under the radar and pretty illiquid, where I see, some pretty good opportunity for upside.
Okay, well, I know that one of the main sectors that you follow is diamonds. I've been a bit of a diamond fan for a long time. I was infected many years ago with the diamond disease, I call it.
That's right.
Sometimes it treats you better than others, as you said with Ashton there. But I know you follow a few companies there in the diamond space. One is Lucara. What are you thinking about that one these days, James?
I really like Lucara. I mean, it's a more conservative. It's an established business. So you're not going to see the kind of run up that a lot of investors in junior mining are looking for, right? But I mean, they found, late last year, they found that 1,111 carat diamond, the largest diamond discovered in 100 years, and I think they found quite another one that was quite large as well. So these are stones that
one at one time.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, that's a unique stone. That stone alone is worth. I guess they've been offered like 60 million for it. So the stock, I think it's almost at $1 billion valuation. I expect it to hit that soon, but it's just a solid, the Lundin.
Now, something I find.
Sorry.
Something that I find quite interesting about Lucara is it's a cash machine that they have there at their diamond.
Yeah, it's quite unique, for a mining company, I think. If you looked at if you looked at the financials just without knowing that it was a diamond mining company, you'd think it was a great business. But this stone that they found, I don't know what they're going to, I'm sure they're going to take it on tour, but just they'll be able to get a lot of marketing heft out of that one, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. That's it is a wonderful business when you have the right diamond mine. They say it's the Rolls Royce of mining for a reason, and
Yeah,
you
that's the hard part, though, right?
What's that? We're kind of coming out in and out when we're each trying to talk there, James. But I was going to say that what's interesting to me about Lucara is that they've got a really large stockpile of cash and these special extremely large stones as part that makes up almost 20% of their valuation. So, however, whatever metrics you want to put on it, it looks like an excellent business and a cheap valuation to me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know about cheap, but the other, one of the knocks on Lucara is that they only have the one mine. But with the share price strength they have, I mean, that's, they'll be able to use that as currency if they do see another opportunity to take over, another operation.
And another one you follow, James, is North Arrow, NAR. What do you feel about that one these days?
Well, North Arrow, I took licks on North Arrow. It had a great run up last year before they got the valuation back from the Killalugak, which is their colored diamond project. So I mean, I'm still, I sold a little bit, but I still own the stock. It's still a large holding. It's the stock's been crushed this year, along with the other many other companies, but particularly North Arrow has. It's drifted down. A lot of people were in it for the colored diamond story. But the interesting thing about North Arrow, I mean, I like I like the management. Grant Thomas is the chairman. His Aber, smart guy. They've got cash, and they've got two other interesting projects. Piku in Saskatchewan, which was a grassroots discovery, and then Redemption as well. So they've got cash. They've got two active drilling programs. So I mean, I think that's an interesting stock at these levels.
James, you follow it a little more closely than me, but on the exploration side, the Redemption project is in a phenomenal address, and they're getting ready to drill that fairly soon. When would they drill the Saskatchewan stuff?
I should know. I can't remember. I think they've started drilling at one of them. And the other one, if they started drilling last month at one of them, and this month they start at the other.
Okay.
But I don't remember which is which.
Okay, so as
some
far
news
as
flow out of North Arrow too, I think.
As far as an exploration diamond company is concerned, they've got a lot on the go.
They do, and they do have the Lundin Group backing them as well as a major shareholder.
So
I see that as a positive as well.
So you kind of got Lucara as the mining company, and NAR, who Lucas Lundin is involved with both of those companies, as your exploration play.
Right. And people call me crazy. Some of them in the chat, but I'm still a believer in the Killalugak story.
Well,
with North Arrow. I don't know when and I don't know how, but I do think that'll be a mine at some point.
I think it's very far in the future, young James. I've seen these numbers before, and I'm one of them.
Yeah.
But that's all right. That's what makes a market, as they say, James. I wanted to also talk to you about gold. We've got a couple. We've got a company that we both have featured in our reports. You were in it before I was. Is Sabina. And I jumped on board, I think, about November, and you had written them up, I think, in the summertime or not. What are you feeling about Sabina these days?
I think Sabina, it's a great company. They've got a lot of cash, and it's kind of interesting how they got that cash. Like, I've sort of been following Sabina since 2008, 2009. They were called Sabina Silver back then, and they were focused on the Hackett River. project, which they subsequently sold to Xstrata for a lot of money and a royalty. And so that money's sort of gotten them through to today. So back in 2008, 2009, when they were the silver company, they were a net cash play at that time too. And then in 2010, 2011, if you look at pull up a long-term chart for Sabina, I mean, the run-up was quite incredible in 2010, 2011. I think it hit 750. It was $1 billion market capitalization. And then they bought, in 2009, I think they bought the Back River. And they've been drilling it ever since. Bruce McLeod took over a year ago. He's been buying a lot of stock in the market, strong leadership. So the stocks, it's come a long ways, but I think Sabina's a great leveraged play to gold. They've got so many ounces in the ground, high grade, some of that in open pits, which is kind of unique as well, I think. So I still think it's a solid pick despite the run up, especially if you think gold's going to have a nice run this year.
Well, I picked up on it after you, and one of the reasons I started following it again, I had watched it, and that's why I mix up their name a lot of times. I call them Sabina Silver accidentally, and I get it mixed up. I've seen that when Bruce got involved, I got very excited. I started watching the company closer. I remember some coverage that you and the guys at CEO.ca had given the company back in the summertime, around the time when I think they had released their first feasibility study. Was when I think you and Tommy were talking a lot about that feasibility study. And then I picked it up after that. And the one thing that I think might surprise a lot of people this year is that they're kind of looked at as a advanced development play, but they bring an extra spice to the plate this year in that they're going to be drilling 500 meters, approximately 500 meters from where the proposed plant is. And they have this structure. You and I were at their Christmas party this year, and I was showing you on the map where this big structure goes right through their property. Right. It's where all the deposits are located. And they did a bunch of sampling right 500 meters from there. And they're finding the exact kind of geochemical signatures as they have where they've drilled before and had success. In fact, Bruce was telling me that wherever they've had this structure and the geochem to back it up, they've never missed. And they're about to start drilling those targets in this month, I believe. And so that's what's got me really excited, and seeing it with the potential catalyst that could really break it out from its peers.
Yeah, and that's a nice, it's nice to have a bit of news flow this year too, because they are, they're in a bit of a slow period as far as they're into permitting. So they're not, there's not as many news releases coming out, and so I think they'll continue to show strength if gold goes up. But that exploration that you've talked about is a nice sort of call option on Sabina as well,
Exactly. So they've been going up with the rising tide in gold, and then I think with this, most of the time, new drilling at a project that's already advanced isn't really that exciting. But when you're 500 meters from the proposed plant, and if you can find high grade that close, you could affect the economics, plus you generate the exploration news. And so that's what I'm looking for out of Sabina over the next few months, is to see that drilling and get it finished. One of the things that I've always was impressed with your work when it was over at the Sun and then over on the digital side of things is that you've had some really good people. You were mentioning to me when we were talking earlier today about one of your articles was on Robert Quartermain and his Pretium resources. Now, Pretium is one of my top 5 gold picks. So I thought we should chat about that. What did you learn from being able to spend some time with Robert, and what do you think about the project since then, James?
Sure. Well, you know, I wore different hats at the Sun at different times, but at one point I took over as a business reporter. You know, and talking to Bob was actually my first interview as a business reporter there. Pretium had just IPO'd on the exchange. I think, you know, he just left his former company and taken some time off. Gold was still quite high anyway. So I interviewed him then, wrote that up, and then I interviewed him, I guess about 2 years ago when I was at the Sun doing mining reporting, and that was just shortly after the, you know, the resource estimate controversy. You know, some tough times. The stock, I think, went down to $3, and then I interviewed him a few days ago for a piece I'm going to do on the Golden Triangle. And so it's been interesting to see the evolution, you know, from you know, a prospect basically, some high grade veins to, you know, to what's going to become a mine and it's fully financed now. You know, the stock has suffered, but they're kind of in that development stage, you know, where that's kind of typical. Mind you, it has fallen, you know, it has fallen, done the opposite to what the gold price has done.
Now,
But it's a pretty exciting project overall.
Now, I think that some of that recent action is the finishing off of the financing, and markets tend to get a little spooked when financings happen, especially when it's a bought deal of $140 million or something like that. But for me, and why I picked it is that, you know, I don't just pick companies for short-term pops. That was sort of my pick list of gold companies that I think will perform well this year, because I think gold will perform well this year, and I think it will. I actually believe it's the start of a new bullish trend. I think we've went through a down cycle and now we're into a new up cycle. And in that kind of situation, I think a company like Pretium, especially once they get producing, and now that they've raised all the money they need to get to become a mining company, now is when it gets really exciting. But you know, that's sort of
a huge hurdle for them. Yeah.
Pardon me?
No, that's a huge hurdle for them, right? So it's great to have that in the rearview mirror.
Exactly. Now it's full steam ahead on building the mine. Now, you know, it's a high grade mine, and in these high grade systems, you're chasing little lenses of high grade, and you know, those aren't really, they don't often have the continuity one would like, and you know, they're not easy to trace. But the good thing about Robert Quartermain is he knows what he's doing when it comes to mining. This isn't his first mine, and he knows how to mine high grade.
Yeah, he you know, he made the point to me when I interviewed him the other day. I get, you know, he doesn't own a big house or anything, so you know, most of his net worth is in his is in Pretium shares. So he's got some skin in the game there.
Yeah. And well, I guess I don't want. I'd like to pick your brain and all, James, but I told you I wasn't gonna be a gotcha kind of guy. Can you give me one scoop for the show on something you're gonna talk about, Robert Quartermain and Pretium related, or am I asking too much?
No, you know, there weren't many scoops. It was just sort of to hear more about, you know, where they're at, what's happening on the site now, and so I can't give you any scoops because I don't have any on Pretium.
Well, the fact that he has most of his money in Pretium is he's putting all his money on the line. So you know, that's pretty good skin in the game. He's had a career of making money for his shareholders, and now he's sort of putting all his eggs in one basket. He's your classic sort of mining guy, exploration guy, especially, James.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you mentioned that you're doing a piece on the Golden Triangle, and one of our buddies, Rob McLeod, is in the Golden Triangle. In fact, just outside of Stewart, with an advancing project going through the economic evaluation stages now. Is IDM going to be part of your story?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Rob's got a great project there at Red Mountain. You know, it's a smaller scale. You know, Pretium's going for the big mine, you know, lots of ounces, whereas Red Mountain's more of a small scale, get it up and producing, and then see where you can take it, I think. But the interesting thing about IDM is the deal Rob pulled off with with Oban Mining, in which he picked up all those Yukon claims. I interviewed Rob a while ago and did a sort of a piece on him and on Sean Ryan. So with those two guys working together. But Rob told me he's the second largest claims holder now in the Yukon. So I don't think that's getting too much value among by investors. And so I think he's got some money now, and I think he'll turn those Yukon claims into something as well.
Well, I completely agree with you. I mean, I've been doing more research now that they're getting closer to the feasibility study, and with the Stewart Play, you've got a road that goes right up to that project, and that makes that thing very special. And when you've got a guy who knows how to find gold, like Rob McLeod does, and especially with his family's history in that area, it's a very compelling story to me. I mean, I think that as we go forward in the business, James, that in the old days it was all about adding ounces to your balance sheet. I think in the future it's going to be about finding profitable mining opportunities more, not just your next 10 million ounces you can add, but how are we going to make money out of another 1 million ounces over here? And I think that that's where that project falls in. But as well as you, I'm very excited about their Yukon projects. I think that, Rob's had a lot of success with Underworld up in the Yukon. He's sort of a historian, kind of geologist, and he knows where what's going on up there. So I'm really optimistic about that too. I imagine they're going to take it a little, probably do some sampling this summer, maybe some drilling. I don't know. What have you heard?
Yeah, when I talked to him, they were still going through a lot of there's a ton of data, and I think thousands of soil samples. Evaluating that, he brought on a couple of guys, including Brandon McDonald from the chat, and Andy Randall to help him go through and evaluate, the top prospects. But it's a nice, it's a nice card for Rob to have too with IDM, right? I mean, he can spin those out. He's got different options with those claims as well. So I don't know if he's firmed up a plan for for this summer yet.
So Brandon is he experienced in compilation of data, GIS kind of stuff? Is that why he was brought on? I imagine that's the first task, is to capture all the data, put it into a GIS so that you can then evaluate things more realistically.
Yeah, I think Brandon's a geo, but he's also very familiar with the Yukon as well. So I think that's why Rob brought him on too.
Okay. And Brandon's someone who's in the chat. I mean, let's talk about the chat for a little bit. I mean, I have my own website, and I have a second home on your website. Well, the part of the CEO.ca with the chat there, and just the conversation we're having right now about Rob and his project and Brandon. Rob and Brandon are often on the chat, contributing commentary to the chat. I think it's the best tool I've ever seen for investors.
It's really taken off. I mean, it's a great way to connect people and meet new people, have conversations, even do business deals, and I agree. It's really exciting to be part of it. And Tommy's really taken that. Tommy and the developers are taking that from nothing into something that's really cool in the sector.
It is, and it's a wonderful design. I recently wrote my first article on CEO.
All right, I'm going to give you a round of applause here.
Yeah, and why I wrote that is about the new design that they recently did with the. They've got the stream with all the people contributing in the middle, and then on the sides, on the left side, they've got news and articles and sponsors, and and then on the other side, a bunch of other tools. It's a tremendous design to me. I've been in the computer end of things for a long digital world for a long time, and I watch that stuff really closely. I think it's a phenomenal design, and what makes it such a great site is the people that are involved in the commentary.
Yeah, yeah. There's some really, there's some really sharp. I'm sometimes intimidated by the level of, knowledge, and there's just some really sharp analysis going on in the chat, and good people too, right? And I think as more and more people learn about it, and as word of mouth spreads, I think that thing's just going to build.
And it's in real time too. Like earlier, I think it was you who wrote a piece on Rockhaven, and they put out a resource calculation, and you had noted in your or was it no, it was a economic, maybe PFS or
yeah, PEA, yeah.
PEA, preliminary economic assessment, and they had you had noted in your piece about how the stock hadn't really reacted. So that caught my attention. So I went and did some of the homework, and I contributed a couple comments, and some others made some comments in there. And that's the kind of thing that happens in real time. Stories that are breaking in the chat site.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's kind of a reminder of how much things have changed. I'm sure you've seen the same thing. Like when I went to journalism school, we learned how to process photos in a dark room, with the chemicals, dipping it into the chemicals. And, 20 years later, we're, connecting with people from all over the world in a investing chat room, talking in real time.
Well, I actually, I hate to age myself, but there was a BC Tel years ago had a thing called Link something 2000. It was pre-internet.
Oh yeah.
And that was the whole thing that I was interested in, was the ability to communicate with people all over the world. And since then, it's become, you did it on a modem and you dialed in, and it was like really janky. And but it's the same, and now it's just becoming more and easier and easier and easier. And look at how powerful it is when you can bring a group of people together that are knowledgeable and have questions, and how powerful a tool that is for investors.
Mm-hmm.
I
think it's a really cool device, and investment conference in your pocket is what we sometimes use. And, if you can't be at these conferences, you can't be at the Subscriber Investment Summit or whatever, right? I mean, it's all right there for you,
Exactly. And I kind of steal that marketing. I'm using it now. I try to say whenever I put out a piece, it's like I can deliver a conference amount of people to the story.
Sorry, you cut out on me there.
No problem. I said that I kind of stole from you guys the part about the conference in your pocket.
Yeah.
In that I now tell companies, when I'm looking for sponsors and stuff like that, that my audience is like a conference that comes to look at each piece I put out.
Right. You better talk to Tommy about the royalty.
What's that?
Talk to Tommy about the royalty on that.
No. Artists, what do they say? Artists steal and real artists, or
that's right.
Artists borrow and real artists steal. So I borrowed it. I'm going to call it borrowing. So before we close, you told me about a company that is what you consider a special situations play. And I wanted to ask you about that. And then the reason I want to close it off is that it also talks about, I think it brings us into the Subscriber Summit well. So, James, sure. Can you talk about that company for me?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so it's one of the first companies I wrote about for resource opportunities. Kind of one that I found myself. It's called Morian Resources. And so it was it's a royalty company. They owned 25% of a large coal deposit off the coast of Nova Scotia. So this was a project that a Cape Breton a government development company had tried to get going back in the day. built two large access tunnels underground, and Morian owned and sold their 25% to Xstrata. Sorry, let me see if I can get this straight. Xstrata owned 75%, and the ownership changed. So anyway, the eventual buyers, the Klein Group, which is a private coal group out of the U.S., run by Chris Klein, who's a billionaire down there. So they're developing it now as a private project, and Morian has a royalty on that. So there's a lot of coal there. So Morian has a market cap of about 14 million now, and this year they'll get. I expect them to get in milestone payments about 3.5 million, just on the coal, on first production, and then on first export of coal. And so the Klein Group's put a lot of money they've built a power line to the project. They've got a wash plant, which means they'll be able to get higher prices probably for the coal. So they're putting they're hiring people, they're bringing in continuous miner machines. So they're serious about bringing it into production.
Now,
And
you kind of skipped out for a second there, James, and I think I might have lost some of the details about when they purchased that. Did they get cash in that deal as well? What was the breakdown of that deal again?
yeah, Morian got 2 million, I think, when the deal closed. So I think their market cap's about 14 million. I think they have about 3 million in the bank. It's a lean company, not much G&A. So they've got milestone payments coming for when Klein, starts producing coal, and for when Klein exports coal. Then on top of that, they've got a sliding royalty scale, and I think the mine life is about 30 years. And so coal, who wants to invest in coal, right? But right now, Nova Scotia Power is burning coal that they import from, Colombia and the U.S., right? So they'll be able to sell some of that coal right in Nova Scotia. They'll provide some jobs there. And then Morian's other asset is a Black Point by Vulcan Materials, which is a New York Stock Exchange listed. I think it's one of the biggest aggregate producers out of the U.S. So that thing has a 50-year mine life, and I think that one is expected to begin producing 2018, 2019. But Morian is working with Vulcan on environmental permitting, which is expected to go through this year, and that will also trigger an $800,000 payment to Morian.
So, wow, it's looks like a pretty cash rich relative to their valuation, and they got some good cash coming and a good cash flow into the future, and it sounds like they've got their costs under control.
Yeah. I mean, the natural buyer for Morian would be, this Klein Group out of the U.S. to buy out the royalty. But if they do that, and they do have a shareholding in Morian, but if they do that, they're going to have to pay up for it.
Yeah, but even if they offered 25 million,
Dresky is going to be speaking at the Subscriber Investment Summit.
I was saying, James, even if they offered 25 million, they would be getting 3 million back and saving them through 3.5 million in the first year.
Yeah.
Like 30. Well, how much is that? 25%, 40% of their purchase price back.
That's right.
I don't know. So they're also going to be at the Subscriber Summit. I want to talk about the Subscriber Summit because I was at the one in Vancouver. I actually did some commentary based on that. I think it's a great show, and you know more about it. You give the pitch on why my audience should go and see that show, James.
Yeah. I mean, the lineup on Saturday for this Saturday Subscriber Investment Summit, it is, pretty exceptional. It's a high quality, like for investors who are just starting out in the sector and sort of not sure what you can look at, or there's thousands of companies. It's a great sort of short list. It's a great place to start, I think. it's high quality management teams and projects. So Maureen will be there. Lithium X, Nova Copper. Some pretty interesting projects and executives there. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be out there this year. It's this Saturday. It's the day before the PDAC starts. It's also in Toronto. What location and what time does it start, James? And how can people find out about getting to go there?
Sure. Yeah, I think there might be some few tickets left. I think it starts at 9 in the morning. Your registration might be at 8. But if you go to Subscriber Summit, let me just check. I think it's subscribersummit.com.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. They can find out any details now. If they
that's got all the information.
If they aren't able to go, I think I might do another commentary piece on the companies at the conference, because for me, just like you as a guest, I think, and why I promote other newsletter writers and commentators is because you guys are great filters for my audience, which is what I've always tried to be as well. The nonsense marketing about, oh, get these wonderful returns and spammy kind of marketing isn't what I'm about. It's about finding real stories, and I might get it wrong and I might get it right, but I think that I'll give you a reason to either agree or disagree with me. And guys like you as well, $299, you're a wonderful filter. That show, it has what, Eric Coffin, Bruce, who else is there? Keith Schaefer on the
Keith Schaefer will be there.
And then
Keith Schaefer, the oil and gas bulletins. But then also some of the speakers are impressive. Like Warren, a couple hedge fund managers will be there as well. So it'll be really interesting to hear from them. Tommy will be there talking about the chat. And for people who can't be there Saturday, like I'll be there, and I'm sure others there will be active on the chat, chatting about what we're hearing. So.
Well, you're going to be my eyes and ears out there, you guys. So I'm going to be plugging you for information, because I'm going to be out here and I want to be reporting on what's going on out there, James. So I think that that's a perfect sort of ending point for the show. James, thank you very much for coming today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Allan. It was fun.
Let's do it again. I told you it wasn't going to be too painful.
Let's do it again sometime.
I'm gonna hold you to that, James. This is something that I'm developing with my show. I want to get a good roster of new commentators on the market onto the show, and I really like your work. I think it's worth my audience checking out at resourceopportunities.com, or you can always find me and James hanging out at ceo.ca. If you're not signed up, you have to be. On that note, I want to say thank you to everybody for watching. I want to say thank you to my guest, James Kwantes of Resource Opportunities and CEO.ca, and my sponsors. And on that note, you all have a great day, and I will talk to you soon.